What you think you know about Achilles tendinopathy might be wrong, so stay tuned to learn more. Did you know that an estimated 20 million people in the United States have some sort of Achilles issue, whether from a past rupture or ongoing Achilles pain? If you are in this category, you're not alone. It can be really confusing to figure out your Achilles situation because there's so much out there and you only know what you know, especially if you've been dealing with this problem for years. But why is it so difficult to treat Achilles pain? The reason is you've been given the wrong plan. Instead of giving you control over your life, you've been given a plan that simply does not work. It robs you of your life and health and fitness because there's always this worry in the back of your mind that you're going to rupture it, cause permanent damage, or you're going to be slow the last few miles of a marathon. You know why we run, right? We run because of the solitude that gives us a chance to get away from life a little bit. And I can certainly tell you what running means to me. It's an opportunity to build fitness and feel good about myself. But running also gives you the power of community. You can join a race or a running club and it can change your life. So if pain is stopping you from achieving your running goals, that's a big deal. The thing with Achilles tendinopathy is it's not like a rupture where you tear it and you know it immediately. With Achilles tendinopathy, it gradually creeps up on you, maybe for weeks, months, or even years. And that's why it can be really difficult to determine if you have Achilles tendinopathy or not in the beginning. What typically happens, you might get soreness, you might stress it out at first, and you might be able to run through it and the pain goes away. So that's the type of pain that you feel at first, like dull, achy, soreness pain that tends to go away, but it always finds a way to come back. Achilles pain is quite deceiving because you don't know if you have soreness or if you have tight muscle or if it's actually a tendinopathy that's developing. So what do? You keep running. Of course you keep running because you love running. And my goal is to allow you to keep running even with Achilles tendinopathy. There's going to be some cases where you're not going to be able to, and that's okay too. The goal is to find a way to keep you active and engaged with your favorite sport. At the end of the day, it's not your fault. How would you know if you had Achilles tendinopathy in the beginning? You thought it was soreness, and now you're in this situation. It's not your fault. Let me show you what the wrong plan looks like. If you go on Google and type in Achilles tendinopathy, the first thing that pops up is one of the leading medical institutions in the United States telling you to rest, ice, use compression, and elevate. This drives me crazy because this is outdated information. The RICE protocol was invented by a doctor in the 70s as a way to educate doctors, athletic trainers, physical therapists, and other health professionals an easy acronym that they could use to help treat acute and subacute injuries. But we now know that Achilles tendinopathy does not need rest, ice, compression, and elevation. In fact, the very doctor who proposed this acronym in the 70s came out in 2013 saying that it's wrong, it's not supported by research, and it should not be used. And yet, in 2024, people are still using it. That is the definition of a wrong plan. You might be asking, well, how do I know this? Well, I've been practicing as an athletic trainer in the sports medicine space for more than 11 years. And at the beginning of my career, I used this exact protocol with a few other hands-on treatments that I used for Achilles tendinopathy. So what was the result? Very few people got better. I am a results-oriented guy. I want to see my clients and patients get better. So if they don't, I'm devastated. So I needed to find a better way. And luckily, The research sort of caught up to Achilles tendinopathy treatment, but not quite there yet. There's still a lot of work to do. But here's what we know. This one key will change the way you think about Achilles tendinopathy. But before I get into this, I want to take a step back and take you back to your childhood. Do you remember the Magic Bus with Miss Frizzle? It's one of my favorite TV shows as a kid. So imagine you were on that bus along with your friends and Miss Frizzle from school, and you dive into the tendon. And Miss Frizzle turns to you and says, "What do you see?" And you look over, you look at the tendon, you're looking at the tendon, you're like, "Gee, I don't see anything that's different." My tendons are white, glisteningly white, they're shiny. They're covered with the smooth tissue called fascia. And this fascia helps keep everything together in the body. So you're traveling along the tendon, you're looking around, you say, okay, this person has pain, can't run, can't do 10 heel raises, can't jump, but I'm looking at the tendon, it looks alright. What's going on here? What's really happening? This is an example of what most people don't realize with Achilles tendinopathy, is that it's not actually the entire tendon that's broken down and defective when it comes to pain. Oh, I had a partial tear in my Achilles tendon. Okay, who told you that? Well, some doctor did. Okay? Yeah, MRI, maybe they showed a partial tear. But where was the partial tear? Usually, with Achilles tendinopathy, it only affects a very small portion of the tendon. So you're back on the bus, and you find that partial tear. Okay, if there's a partial tear, there's the spot where the tendinopathy is happening. It's usually pretty small. So I use this flashcard as an example. This white stuff around here is the healthy tendon. It's still doing its job, right? It's still transferring forces generated by the calf muscles, transferring down the tendon into the calf muscle. The other thing about the tendon is it's straight. It likes to be in straight parallel fibers that give it strength. Kind of like a rope with multiple fibers, and that's what makes a strong rope, so you can do tug of war without the rope breaking. Same idea. But the tendinopathy piece is only a small piece of the tendon, and when it's less efficient, it becomes painful because it has to work harder, the nerves become more sensitive, you actually develop more blood vessels in the area as the body is attempting to heal it. There's more fluid, which increases the pressure in the tendon. There's lots of things that are happening that contribute to pain. So what do most people do with Achilles tendinopathy? They try to scrape it, they try to ice it, they try to heat it, they do anything that's possible. They try stretching, but the tendon doesn't really stretch. It's not supposed to stretch. That's why stretching doesn't work. It may make it feel better in the short term because you're actually releasing some of that fluid that's in the tendon that causes pain, but the fluid is going to come back anyway. There are a few problems with basic Achilles tendinopathy treatment, and that is tendons are low sensitive stressors. If you rest it for weeks or months, what happens is tendons respond to load. So if you're active, you're doing sports, if you're used to running marathons or ultras, the tendons are going to adapt to that situation. The opposite is true. If you rest, the tendon is going to adapt to the resting state. And then if you try to run again, the pain comes back. And sometimes pain comes back worse than it did before. So tendons are low sensitive. The second reason why most treatments don't work is because the degenerative spot where the tendinopathy is happening is too deep or inaccessible to what you're trying to do with the treatment. And then the third reason why basic Achilles tendinopathy treatment doesn't work is there's just too much going on to really pinpoint one specific treatment that makes a big difference. Right? So you have fluid, increased blood vessels. You actually have, I neglected to mention earlier, you have added fat cells that develop and form inside the tendon, which compresses the structure. And you also have a tendon that's not at peak capacity and function. So there's a lot going on that makes one particular treatment difficult to achieve. So you might be asking, well, if I stretch, if I warm up, or I'll start running the first couple miles, but the pain goes away, what gives? Like, what is happening with the tendon that the pain goes away? So what's the point anyway? It's a great question. Really, two main reasons why pain goes away. One is what we call the gating effect. Have you ever walked into a corner of a table, hit your knee on it, and you say, ouch, probably a couple swear words, and you rub that injured area that you just hit? That is the gating effect. You're using that rubbing motion to overcome the pain stimuli, because the way that the body's nervous system is built, it responds to touch and sensation faster than pain. That gating effect is the basis of every treatment out there that you might use for Achilles tendinopathy, like shockwave, E-stim, ice, right? It gates the pain. But at the end of the day, it's not an effective long-term solution, because once you take away that sensory and pressure component that's placed on the nervous system, the pain's going to come back. The second reason why pain goes away when you warm up or go for a run is because you have fluid in the tendon, like I mentioned earlier. And as you run, you push the fluid out of the tendon, and that relieves pain. But then after the run, it hurts again because the fluids come back. Those are the two main reasons why pain goes away if you run, stretch, or warm up. Now you know why the old way of treating Achilles tendinopathy doesn't work. We have to change our approach. Not because some expert told you to do so, but you want to run without feeling slow at the end of the marathon, or you just want to be active. You want to be able to use running as a source of health and fitness for your life, especially if you want to live the next 20, 30, 40 years of your life. Pain-free, health-wise, be able to be mobile and active. I get it. I mentioned earlier, what is the one treatment that can really help strengthen your Achilles tendon? Well, it's exercise. It's not hands-on or passive treatments like rest, ice, and shockwave. It's exercising. Because I'm going to bring this flashcard again, because I think it's a great analogy here, because you have that small piece of tendon that's not doing so well. So it's kind of like this tendon's a little sick and needs some help, but it's got a very difficult disease to treat. Right? So it's actually much easier just to leave that part alone and focus on the healthy tissue around it, strengthen it up so that it can take the load, the things that you want to do in life. You want to run an ultra? Sure. If you want to run a local 5K, go for it. The goal is to allow you to be able to do that with a stronger tendon. Because a stronger tendon is a more efficient tendon, and a more efficient tendon is a pain-free tendon. And by doing that, you also give this little guy, a chance to recover, to heal. But this part takes up to a year to heal. Right? You don't have a year to get better. You have 12 weeks at minimum. So that's where strengthening the tendon comes in. What does exercise look like in my protocol? It's everything that has been validated by research. In fact, there's a study in the Journal of Athletic Training from 2020, I think. I'll put a link in those captions below. The study basically rates the effectiveness of treatments from exercise to all the other treatments that I talked about. And they consistently found that exercise has an A+ grade for the effectiveness in treating Achilles tendinopathy, while other treatments got a C grade. So it shows you that exercise is a superior form of treatment. So we do this through eccentric, isometric, heavy slow resistance, plyometric, mobilization, and anything else that you need. Because there are many underlying causes of Achilles tendinopathy, and every person's is different. But that's basically the 30,000 foot view of the Achilles tendinopathy treatment protocol. So you might be asking, well, if I overdid it in the first place, I have Achilles tendinopathy. Why doesn't rest make sense? Why do I need to keep exercising? It's a great question. It's a valid question. There are two main mistakes when it comes to Achilles rehab. One is that they will load the tendon well enough, and as a result, the tendon doesn't get stronger. Again, that leads to continued pain. The second mistake is that they overdo the tendon. They do too much, too soon, too fast, and too often, and they have to take a few days off after that exercise to rest it, to let the pain come down a little bit so they can tolerate the exercise. This is not a very effective or sustainable strategy because it's going to take your recovery from a typical 12 to 16 weeks all the way up to a year. The third strategy is the most effective. Stress the tendon just a little bit over the tolerance line. So if the tendon is able to tolerate X amount, we bring it just a little bit. And then we stop. We go back down. And then we try again the next day. We go up just past the threshold. By doing so, it challenges the body to send more protein, collagen, healing cells, all these fun stuff that's inside the body. I won't get into detail. That's a whole nother conversation for another day. But it forces the body to add that material. It's kind of like forcing the construction crew to put in the steel beams so they can build a building. Otherwise, they're just sitting back waiting for the steel beams to arrive. If you don't do enough. If you do too much, you might break the machine, or you might have too many steel beams, and it becomes painful. Does that make sense? Leave a comment below if you have any questions along the way. I respond to every comment, so don't hesitate to let me know what you're thinking. You might be wondering, how can I get started? How do I find this information? Well, you can get started for free by Googling Achilles Tendinopathy exercises or following me on Instagram at painfreeachilles. But to get the best results, you can get private one-on-one coaching that will change your life. And this coaching program is for runners who are dedicated, committed, and enthusiastic about achieving their running and fitness goals. And the reason why I offer coaching is not just another course of physical therapy, or I'm not going to tell you the rest, weeks on end. We're going to figure out what is really going on with Achilles tendinopathy, find the underlying causes, and then fix them. And if this is something that you need, and you're frustrated with your pain, or if you try everything, or even if you've had pain for years, just comment the word coaching below, and I'll send you details about how this all works. Does it sound good? To recap, the way to treat Achilles tendinopathy is to exercise and smart training and coaching. There you have it, the ultimate guide for runners with Achilles tendinopathy. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe only if you want to. There's no pressure. You can also like it, you can share it, you can click on the bell so that you're notified the next time I post a video on YouTube. And don't forget to leave a comment if you have any questions or if you want to say hi. I'll see you soon.